Hi, and welcome to Peacemakers. Great to have you along with me today. It is March 27th, I promise. It sure doesn't look like March 27th up here. I'm in northern British Columbia. I woke up to minus 13. I'm headed south, and it's now at minus 8. So I'm thinking in the next couple of hours I could be above zero. Fingers crossed. I want to talk to you about the war. The literal war we find ourselves living in today, and compare that to the war, World War II, the Great War, and the response of Germans and the Dutch at that time. The Germans in Nazi-occupied Germany had a decision to make. 80% or more stayed with their denominations, which submitted to the Führer. They were no longer allowed to preach out of the Old Testament. That was the Jewish book of lies. And they were told what sermons to preach. The minister was given the sermon from the Nazis. So the church, the Christian church in Nazi Germany, became a Nazi propaganda mill. And 80% of the Christians of that day went along with it. 20% could not accept the corruption of their gospel. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer was one of those people, and he was faced with a moral dilemma. He saw the evil that Hitler was accomplishing in Nazi Germany, the death of millions of Jews, blacks, the handicapped. There was all kinds of evil going on in his day, and he was faced with the moral question of what to do about it. Do you simply pray and say that's enough? Or is there a time where you literally have to do something about it? Faced with that moral dilemma, this young German youth pastor decided to take part in an attempt to kill Hitler, assassination attempt. And he was hanged 2 weeks before the end of the war for the role he played in that. So, faced with that dilemma, he chose to take action, even though lots of us would be shying away from that. Thou shalt not murder. Faced with that moral dilemma, he decided that that was the lesser evil than not saying anything. Now, the 80% tried to reason with him and say, you know, we are going to work with the Nazis and try and work reform from the inside. And Bonhoeffer stood up and said, it makes no difference if we stand up on the train and run down the corridor in the opposite direction. We are still on the same train. Brilliant words, a brilliant theologian. And that is what we find ourselves faced with today. The same moral dilemma. What do we do about all the evil that is taking place around us today? Now, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. I'm not saying we need to go into an abortion clinic with a bomb or a rifle, and I'm not promoting violence in any way, shape, or form, but we need to be heard and seen in opposition to what I perceive as a war on children. The war on the family has taken place and the family lost. The war on what it is to be a man, we lost that war. The war on what it means to be a woman, we lost that war. Now the front has moved to the children. And I see a child today, if they can run the gauntlet of the womb and escape unharmed by abortion, then as soon as they enter the world, they are being indoctrinated and programmed by various forms of media to basically be a depraved, gluttonous consumer who is entirely self-centered. No interest in the world as a whole. No interest, no natural curiosity, no desire to go out, build, and discover. Just a big, lazy, gluttonous consumer, and that's exactly what they're being programmed to be. Now, after the media devices in their childhood have brainwashed them to a degree, they go into the school system where they receive further indoctrination. They will be taught that they are nothing more than an animal and no more responsible for their immoral deeds than the animal kingdom around them. Given the assurance that they will never stand before a holy God to give an account for every word and deed, they are being programmed to believe there is no accountability. And therefore, you see in society today the fruit of that, a willingness to bed hop and to sleep around, to break up families, to have children out of wedlock, to commit adultery. And it's only going to get darker. More and more evil is going to happen around us. Now, what needs to happen is, in the increase of darkness, our light should become more and more evident if we are a light. In the increase of wickedness, when the love of most is growing cold, our love should become more and more evident, that we do not hate like they hate, that we do not swear and want to get in front of like they want to get in front of. So in these last days, where will we be found? How will history remember us? As the 80% who went along with the evil that was being perpetrated around us? Or are we the 20% who said, not on my watch, I'm going to speak up on behalf of the children? Now, I don't want you to think that what we need is a bunch of hateful signs and march in front of schools. What we need is the gospel. The gospel is the power of God for salvation. Every social issue is a platform for the gospel. That is the sole purpose of our existence on this earth, is to bring the gospel. The gospel is the power of God. We can't legislate morality to the people. We can't argue them into a rational moral stance. We need the power of God right now. We need the gospel right now. Not preached from the wisdom of men, lest it empty the cross of its power, but allowing the Holy Spirit to minister through us and effectively reach the world around us. I hope that makes sense. Thanks for traveling along, and I'll talk to you later.